In today's video, I'm going to tell you how to find the right balance between your practice and your match play. Now, some players will practice too much and not play enough matches, while other players will play too many matches and not practice enough. In both cases, the player will not maximize his or her potential. Now, let me tell you why that is. The primary purpose of a practice session in tennis is to work on your game. More specifically, you can work on your movement, on your general fitness, you can work on your tactics, and most importantly for players at the recreational level, practice is going to be the perfect scenario to work on your technique. So while you could improve your fitness and your footwork if you played a ton of matches, you could even improve your tactics, it's going to be absolutely impossible to improve your technique or work on your technique during a tennis match. Now let me tell you why that is. Let's just say, for example, that you're trying out a new grip on your forehand, and now the muscle memory in your wrist at the moment of contact is not going to be developed yet, and when you step out on the match court, if you start with your new grip, you're not going to get a lot of forehands in the court, or if you switch to that new grip halfway through, you're going to start making a tremendous amount of mistakes, which will drag down your confidence. You're going to lose to players who you usually don't lose to, and that's not a good thing. Another example that's very common is players who are trying to develop a kick serve on their second serve, and the fundamentals are not set in place yet. And these players will try their newly learned kick serve in a match situation, and they're making one double fault after another. This is not good. Your confidence is going to go down. You're going to lose to players very easily who you thought that you had a chance against, and this is generally not a good thing to do. So what should you do instead? You take your technique at this current level where it's at, and you play the match to your best ability when we're speaking about technique. Then you go back on the practice court and get the reps in until the fundamentals are set in place and you can execute this newly learned technique in a match situation without conscious thought. In other words, these strokes need to be automized first before they're available to you on the match court. Now let's make up a scenario where you have a fundamentally sound stroke. You're hitting it well in practice, you have consistency, you can get many shots in a row to the exact place where you want to. You can also put a lot of power on the shot as well. You're feeling good about this stroke, and now you step on a match court and this stroke is not there for you. This happens all the time across all levels of the game. Now the primary reason for that is that a match exposes weak spots that you might not have practiced. For example, it could be your opponent. They're giving you a different look, an underspin that you're not used to, maybe a heavy amount of topspin that you're not used to. Maybe they're hitting the ball a lot softer, or they're hitting it a lot harder that you're comfortable with. And now the shot that was working so well on the practice court is not working on the match court at all. It could be other things such as the surface that you play on or your overall mental state. Maybe you're feeling more pressure, maybe you are tight, and this is causing your stroke that works so well on the practice court to fall apart on the match court. So here's how you need to structure practice versus match play. You need to have the ability to analyze your game in matches. So when you finish a match, right away you should take notes, because what happens if you play multiple matches in a row, you forget. You have to do it right after the match, where the match is going to be fresh in your memory, and you're going to write down the type of mistakes that you were making. For example, if you were hitting a lot of double faults, you're going to write that down, and it's obvious that you're going to have to work on your second serve and your first serve the next time you step on a practice court. But more specifically, it could be a certain type of ball that you were missing, maybe when you were pushed out wide or forward. Maybe if the ball was higher, you started missing a lot of shots. You're going to write that down, and the next time you step on a practice court, you're going to work on it. An even better way to analyze your match play is to have a recording of your match. And I made a course titled the Intuitive Tennis Video Analysis Masterclass, where I'll show you exactly how to not only analyze your match play, but analyze your strokes and how to apply the needed corrections. But you cannot just play a match and then senselessly practice afterwards. You have to be very specific and accurate about the corrections that you need to apply on the practice court, and you can collect a tremendous amount of information about your own game if you take notes right after you played your match. For a lot of you guys that are at the lower recreational level, the match might not be necessary because the practice in itself will reveal a lot of problems. And the general rule is that if you're making mistakes in practice, you're going to make a lot more of those mistakes when you play a match. So obviously, if you can't keep the ball in play in a practice situation with no pressure, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out which shots need the most work. Now, how about practice matches? This is going to be an important test of your skills and of your technique, how you're able to play in a practice match. But I'm making a big distinction between a practice match and a tournament match. These are completely different scenarios. I'm going to give you a couple of examples that are going to sound so mysterious, but they are 100% true. There could be a scenario where you play 20 practice sets right before a tournament and you're in great shape, you're feeling good after these practice sets, and they might be very grueling and exhausting, and your body is responding really well. You step on that match court in a tournament setting and you play a tough 3-set match, you're going to be sore afterwards. Now, why would that be the case? Because when you play in a tournament setting, even though you might not be conscious of this, you're going to be trying just that little bit harder. On top of that, there's also a lot more tension, and your technique might change due to the tension of a tournament match. So when you're hitting your strokes differently, when you're moving differently from what you're used to in a practice match, you're going to be sore. Another example is that some players will often cramp in tournament matches, but you will rarely see somebody cramp in a practice match. Again, this has to do with the emotions that we're feeling on a tournament match court. Now, why is there such a big difference between a tournament match and a practice match? Well, the big difference is that a tournament match is official. There's a draw, there are other players who are going to be in the draw. That's a big difference from playing a random practice match where nobody is going to find out about it unless you tell people about it. In an official tournament, there's going to be entered. It's most likely going to be on the internet. You're going to play for a trophy. Your matches are going to influence your rating. You might be playing for points and so on. Now, when you compare the circumstances in an official tournament match versus a practice match, where, by the way, a lot of players care a lot about practice matches. They treat them very seriously. So it's not the fact that players don't care about practice matches, but it's just that a practice match, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. There's no score being kept of it. It's not going to appear anywhere unless you're recording a YouTube video, but that's more of a tournament setting because you're going to have possibly a big audience. But the fact that a tournament is official, this is going to change, number one, how you play, but most importantly, how you feel on the match court. And it's for this reason that it's important to play tournament matches. If you only practice, this is not good because you're not going to test your technique. So you need to play practice matches. And on top of that, you need to play tournament matches. And now let me tell you how to find the right balance between practice matches, and tournament matches. And I'm the type of coach that encourages players to play a lot of tournament matches. Unless someone is dominating and going deep in every tournament, then I would advise that player to be a little bit more careful about the amount of tournaments they play. So having said that, the only way you're going to build that so important confidence in tennis is by winning a lot of matches. And if you're losing a lot, it's going to help if you give yourself a lot of chances throughout the year to get as many match wins in tournament situations as possible. Now, how about practice matches? These are going to be extremely important shortly prior to a tournament. So let's say that you have a tournament that starts on a Friday. It would be a good idea to practice really hard in the beginning of the week, but then to reduce the number of drills and high intensity type of exercises that you do on the tennis court, and to play practice sets on a Wednesday and a Thursday. Now, how many sets in those practice matches prior to a tournament should you play? Well, it's going to depend a little bit on your fitness level, but you don't have to abide by the rules of the game and play a best of 3. You can play as many sets as you want. So let's say you lose the first 2 sets 2-2. You ask your partner, hey, let's play another set. Even though you lost 2-2, if you do a little bit better in that 3rd set, you're going to feel better about your game. One of our best friends from back in the day, my main practice partner in Germany, shout out to Jens Frenegor. We used to do this thing where we kept notes of our practice matches. We had a court time reserved indoors. It was once a week for an hour. It was tough to get indoor court time back in those days, but we kept track. And we looked at it recently when we met each other because I found a list in my old room in Germany, and there were practice matches in there where we played 5 sets with no rhyme or reason. It could be that one guy won the first 3 and the other guy won the 4th and 5th. But practice sets, practice matches are extremely important. Why? Because this is the true test of your technique that you have developed prior. Now there's one caveat, and this is an important one. Let's say that you're completely restructuring your technique and you are making big changes to your strokes. This is a scenario where I would advise you to not play practice matches or tournament matches. You should give yourself enough reps in a non-match situation so that you can optimize your strokes. Now, if you're someone that enjoys playing tennis matches and you can't live without playing tennis matches, in that case, it's okay to play matches, but just know that your technique might not be there for you in a match situation. So it's going to be important to, on top of the regular matches that you play, to get as many reps in as possible in a non-match situation to build that so important muscle memory and to optimize your strokes. So in conclusion, you cannot just practice and you cannot just play matches. You're going to stagnate in your development. You're going to have to do an equal amount of both. Maybe at times there's going to be a little bit more match play, maybe at times there's going to be a little bit more practice needed, but fact is that practice and match play have to go hand in hand if you want to maximize your potential as a tennis player.